Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are joining us today. And welcome to Trend Micro's Internet Safety for Kids and Families programs webinar series. Today, we are going to talk about TikTok, and I'm excited to have our guest, Diana Graber, who is the founder of CyberCivics and CyberWise, to share with us her thoughts and insights into this very, very popular app. I also welcome our interpreters with us today from the Learning Center for the Deaf, Julia Barnes and Krista Lambert. So thank you to the three of you for joining us today. So I'd first like to start with explaining to those of you who might be new to our webinar series that this is something we have been offering to the public for almost 1 year now. And normally we are out in communities all around the world sharing information with parents and students and teachers in about 20 countries on ways that we can all be great digital citizens. But the pandemic obviously changed everything and really forced us to think of new ways to continue the work that we do. We're very grateful for the internet that has allowed us to continue this work. And we're also very grateful for all of the experts and the guests that we've had over the course of this past almost 1 year of starting this series. So with that, I'd like to welcome Diana Graber to today's session. Hi, Diana.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. I think it's been a while since we've seen each other in person, maybe a couple of years now.
Definitely.
So if you could tell us a little bit about your work with CyberWise and CyberCivics, I think that would be a great place to start.
Sure. Well, I'll start with CyberWise. That's our site for parents. Our tagline is "No Grown-Up Left Behind." So it's a resource site that you'll find online at cyberwise.org. And what we do is we offer all kinds of research and news and articles and videos about everything that kids are into today. So we have information on TikTok and Snapchat and Facebook, all that stuff. In addition to that, we also have a middle school digital literacy curriculum called CyberCivics. That's being taught right now. I think we're now in 48 US states and 7 other countries, which is really exciting. That has really kept us busy because with the pandemic and so many kids online, parents and schools are realizing that kids really need, I mean, you know this, Lynette, more than anybody, media literacy, digital literacy, information literacy, super important today. So that takes a lot of our time.
Okay, great. And tell me, how did things change for you since the pandemic began?
Well, like you, we're doing a lot of this. So a lot of the parent presentations now are online, but you know, it's actually been, that part's been good because I've been able to reach so many more groups than having to get on an airplane. So that's changed. And really the biggest change for us is shifting our focus so much to CyberCivics. What we did when the pandemic hit is we quickly just tweaked our resources a little bit so that they could be used online, teachers delivering the lessons via Zoom. And we found that it worked really well that way. So we really were able to reach a lot more schools this year with these lessons being delivered remotely. So that's been a big change for us.
So do you think any parts of the change will stick long term?
You know, I'm kind of hoping that I can keep doing things this way for parent groups because again, we can reach so many more people and it's convenient for parents because they don't have to go anywhere. They can watch it later. They can listen in their car. So I think that part's really great. We talked about this earlier, some kids prefer remote learning. So we're going to keep our lessons available to families and schools that want to teach them remotely. So I think we will find some things that will stick.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you because we have been experiencing the same thing, that there was reticence before the pandemic to accept virtual spaces as an alternative to tackle really big, heavy, challenging topics like how do you raise your kids to, avoid risks online and be kind to each other and use the internet in positive ways. So I agree with you. I hope this part stays forever as an option for people.
Right, right.
One of the other things that we know by every measure over the course of the last year is that screen time has hit an all-time high for anyone who was using them before and for anyone who might not have been using them before. So from your perspective, how did you, how do you advise people on the issue of screen time in general?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up because that's the biggest concern that we hear from parents is, oh my gosh, screen time, But I always try to look at silver linings. And I think what's happened is that, well, two things. Parents and teachers that were very reticent about screen time before finally realized, like, wow, we can teach online, we can be with friends online. So they're seeing the benefits of it. And on the other end of the spectrum, kids that were online all the time are like, okay, I want to be with real people now, So I'm hoping that when we come out of this, we're going to meet somewhere in the middle. So that's really what I'm seeing happening out there. The other thing is it's been a great opportunity for teachers who are really tech reticent to have to up their game. And what I've seen glorious examples of teachers who hated technology a year ago, now all of a sudden going, wow, I can make videos and in Zoom, I can do breakout rooms. And so they're becoming empowered, but they've had to be, and some of them are really liking it. So that's another positive trend that we've seen.
Well, I think it's a good point about um, maybe realizing the benefits from an education perspective, that this would be one of the positive outcomes. There've been a few, I think, thankfully, positive outcomes of the pandemic. So to the topic of today, we know that one app in particular, well, several apps, but one app in particular enjoyed a meteoric rise during the past year.
Yep.
And that app is TikTok. So I just want to bring up a few things about this because, I think everyone's somewhat familiar with it, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, that this is actually an app that was around for a while. And in the US, it was Musical.ly, and but acquired by ByteDance, based in China. You can create short form video. They have always said it was designed for entertainment. I don't know, Diana, if you've ever heard anything otherwise, but I believe that's basically its whole purpose for existing.
I would agree with you, although I think that sometimes now we're finding current events and news also on TikTok. So for kids who are there quite a lot, that's where they're picking up news about coronavirus and how to wash your hands. And, during the George Floyd thing, I think kids were getting a lot of their information from TikTok.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because that's the same evolution as all of its predecessors,
Right, exactly.
Snapchat and Instagram and so on. Yeah,
Right.
they all kind of went through the same evolution.
Right.
So most recent stats, which was really stunning to me, that their daily average usage is 21.81 million people. That's as of this month. So that's up by more than double from a year ago. And I think they're about 1 billion users now, which puts it on par with Instagram, and 3 times larger than Snapchat now, which is, again, pretty stunning.
Right.
So it is free, but there are in-app purchases that range from 99 cents to 99.99. So I don't know, Diana, if you want to talk a little bit about this, but I've not really seen people. I mean, you mostly buy coins that you can then buy virtual gifts in order to reward TikTok creators that you're fans of.
Yeah.
I don't really know what other purpose there would
I don't
be.
see a lot of in-app purchasing. That's not the biggest usage of the app at all. You're right.
Yeah. So I'm sure it's happening. I don't see much of it myself either,
Right.
but something parents should be aware of. And it is listed at age 12 plus in the app stores, although in January, and you might know this too, they decided to make privacy settings on by default for anyone under the age of 16, or 16 and under, I think is the age,
Yeah.
which is really very different from all of its competitors.
Right.
So kudos to TikTok for learning from the others, I think. Not that it's, still with risk, but at least parents should know that too, that it's on by default. You should still check out the privacy settings and available pretty much everywhere for everyone. So I think with that, I want to talk, really briefly about this other thing that they're really pushing, Diana. And I know that some of these you were familiar with, some of them might be new. They were new to you and me, but it's a feature called family pairing that I encourage people in the audience, if you're not familiar with this, it's a way for you. Let's say your child is still too young and you're not ready for them to go into TikTok and use it completely without any guidance. So family pairing, I think, is a great feature for that. And, Diana, I don't know if you have any other thoughts about it. I was just going to go through some of the things that it can do.
Yeah, I was just going to say kudos to TikTok for doing this, because honestly, I've looked around at all these apps that kids are using, and I think actually TikTok has the best safety features, especially because of this family pairing. It's so easy to use. When parents ask about, oh, do I need a third-party app for safety? And I'm just like, look, use what's within the app. I mean, take a look what TikTok offers you for free. It's just a matter of setting the time aside with your child to actually use it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So this is interesting. Some of this was new to Diana and me, but I think, again, kudos to the team. So one of the things you can actually do is now, in general, if you pair your device, so you'll need to download TikTok as a parent, and your child has TikTok on their device. You need to do it because one then is designated as the parent and the other one is designated as the child's device. As the parent, you will be able to manage many things and filter many things and put settings into place that makes it easier for you and maybe safer for your child. So one of the newer features that they have enabled is in the search function in TikTok, you will now be able to decide whether your child can search for certain types of content or users or even hashtags or sounds. So apparently that's a brand new feature in family pairing. This one, I think, Diane, you're probably well familiar with. Just deciding how long they can use it. But, I don't recall, I think they said that this was 60, there used to be 4 settings of time limits you could choose. It wasn't sort of free form. I think you had to pick like 45 minutes, 60 minutes, an hour. It was sort of, I don't know if that's the case anymore. Are you aware?
I know it's pretty easy to use. When you set up your child's phone and your phone for family pairing, it'll take you through screens that really show you all the options very simply. So you're right, it's way easier to use than it was previously.
Okay, great. And then restricted mode means that you can limit the types of content that your child will see. Today, if I was looking at TikTok today and I have no restrictions, but every few videos was really not appropriate for children.
Yeah.
So restricted mode, I believe, just limits those kinds of content from showing up in their feed. Have you heard any feedback about this setting, Diana? Are people
Well,
pretty happy with it, or?
I'm really glad they have this setting because what you brought up is so true. Without that restricted mode, it's pretty shocking the stuff that gets put up on TikTok. There's still like a lot of really sexy dance moves and raunchiness and poor language. And if you have a younger child being exposed to that, I think that's a concern. The other thing, like I mentioned earlier, kids are getting their news from these apps. And, think of our news right now. There's a lot of scary stuff happening out there. So I really, really wouldn't want a young child learning about the horrible effects of coronavirus via TikTok alone in their room,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this restricted mode is really a huge, huge advancement.
Yeah, when I last tested it, I would only see animals. I saw like grandmas and grandpas dancing, um, fairly innocuous stuff. There was nothing harmful. I think they did a pretty good job of this. I'm sure it's not perfect, because I'm not sure how they're doing it, but at least it exists.
Right.
Yeah. And then another new feature is the comments. So you can decide who's allowed to comment on your own child's videos. So that's amazing because you could just limit it to family or just their friends or even just you as their parents. So again, I think this is phenomenal setting. Another new one is discoverability. So you can decide whether your teen their account is private or if anyone can see it, find them publicly or not, which I think is a great feature.
Yeah, all those kids
Um,
that are hoping to be influencers aren't going to like that one.
no, not till they're ready, right? Not till they're ready.
Right.
I think everyone would say there's a pro and con to every one of these,
Oh,
depending
yeah.
on whether you're the child or the parent.
Right.
So liked videos is another setting that you can set, that you will be able to decide whether your child can see videos, or what others can see, the ones that they liked. So meaning if you liked it and you don't want everybody to know that you liked it, this setting helps you keep that private. It helps you keep that private. I would like that on some of my social networking
Right.
apps that I use.
Right.
Oh, can we get that? Oh, we'll
I know,
try.
because I always tell our students, like, a like is like a vote. And what you
That's
like,
right.
it's part of your digital reputation. So it's a very powerful mechanism. And I think, sometimes kids forget that. Adults forget that.
We do. We do. You're right. Um, and then direct messages, just it sort of restricts who can contact your child, or your teen or not. Obviously, I believe this is on by default for those under 16 anyway, as part of their commitment to protecting minors. So, okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing there for a moment. That's great. So TikTok I think we agree, has done wonderful things to protect kids. They've learned the lessons from the past. But you did a session recently
Mhm.
and have been following some recent trends on TikTok. I do remember these kinds of trends being popular on YouTube, on Instagram, and those are challenges. Challenges. So TikTok challenges. So
Right.
can you tell us a little bit about just what makes TikTok challenges different from maybe others in the past, and
Yeah.
what makes them very much the same?
Yeah. So this is so fascinating to me. And maybe it's because of my background in media psychology. Like, I'm always trying to get in the head of a kid and, like, what do they love about this? And I love to see how TikTok has grown and changed. Originally it was just dancing and lip singing to music. And that was a concern because some of the music had bad language and all that. And then it's morphed to how kids have used it, especially during this pandemic, when kids are home on their computers more, on their phones more, and they have more free time. And so the newest morphing thing are these challenges. And basically what that is somebody, usually a celebrity, but sometimes it's just a normal person, will do something on TikTok, make a video of it, and challenge other people to do the same thing and post their video too. So a couple things here. What's interesting about TikTok is that and anyone's a creator. And when you think about the process of making a video, you have to think about it, you have to stage it, you have to shoot it, you have to post it. Those are all creative endeavors, which is kind of cool that kids are using those muscles. These challenges are a whole different story because some of them are cute and fun and entertaining. Sadly, some of them are dangerous. Some of them are really dumb. So it really calls on kids to have some critical thinking skills when they decide which of these challenges to participate in.
So can you give me an example of one that you would consider cute, fun, harmless?
Yeah, so there's so many cute, fun, and harmless ones. I was looking last night because honestly, they change by day. So one that I thought was really cute is the multi-generational challenge. And you say something like, "Come on, mom." And you start with the youngest person in the family and you go to the oldest. And it's lovely because there's so many families that are doing this together. I mean, it's great to see these 99-year-olds on TikTok. Another one that's sort of like that is another family challenge. Oh, there's the Weeknd or whatever his name, it has a song called Blinding Lights. And so there's the Blinding Lights dance challenge. And that's pretty cute too, because it's all kinds of people dancing to the same song. So they're all doing different moves. The Fleetwood Mac challenge was another really popular one that started with a guy on a skateboard that brought back an old Fleetwood Mac song that probably kids had never heard before. And now that song's popular.
No, my kids love cranberry juice now though, but just so you know.
So, I mean, there's a lot of lovely, fun things that you see people of all generations doing. So as an aside, my kids are in their early 20s and they both claim they never use TikTok, although they're always sharing TikTok videos. So explain that one. So my husband was joking that he and I have been working on our TikTok dance moves. And they're like, "Oh, so embarrassing."
Yeah, please, mom, don't. Please,
do
mom.
it.
Yeah, don't, mom. Yeah, I get a lot of that too. So and I remember, gosh, it might be 5, 6, 7 years ago now. Challenges that were not so safe. On YouTube, I remember planking.
Yeah.
Planking where you just laid flat like a board in wherever. Just film yourself doing that wherever. But people sort of started pushing the limits and doing it in dangerous places, like on the edge of the top of a building, like 5-story building, or in really dangerous places. So tell me about some that you're seeing that you're concerned about on TikTok.
Yeah, well, one that got a lot of notoriety was that blackout challenge. I mean, you say it out loud and it sounds unbelievable, but it was, you try to make yourself pass out, asphyxiate yourself so that you'll pass out, and then you come back to life and you videotape it, which is really dumb, right? What's sad about that is a 10-year-old girl in Italy actually tried it and died from it. But there's a couple things going on here. Number one, what's a 10-year-old doing using TikTok alone? So that's a really good reason to watch those age limits on TikTok. And again, it's back to critical thinking skills. One of the reasons I love for kids to wait a little bit older before they start using these apps is because it takes some time to grow that brain and to do ethical and critical thinking. And you really don't want kids doing these challenges that are just, an older kid would say, well, that's not very smart, hopefully. So that was one I didn't like. There was also the coronavirus challenge, which you would lick a toilet bowl seat and post that. That's kind of crazy and dumb as well.
Yeah, I think I saw some of those. Unfortunately, not within TikTok. Those made the news.
Yeah.
So I do want to touch on that a little bit, because there is something about, I mean, I think it started before social media. It started with reality TV and our culture encouraging this desire for your 10 seconds of fame.
Yeah.
Or becoming viral, or whatever the word is today.
Right.
There's only so much a parent can actually control when it comes to those larger forces.
Yeah.
So what can each of us do then about this? Is there some conversation we can have with our children about not needing to seek that fame? Or,
Be an
of course, we
influence.
want them to be safe, but there's something larger driving them, which is I want to
Right.
be the one whose post goes viral.
Right. And that's, I mean, I go back to educating kids about the whole spectrum of digital literacy. I think it's so important for kids before they start doing all this stuff to understand the impact of their digital reputation and to understand that people are going to be judging them by what they see online and that's going to last forever and never goes away and anyone can see it. To understand all that before you jump in and say, oh, I want this fame and notoriety, there's a downside to it. And you want to discuss that with your kids and have your kids really grapple with that and think about that before they jump in and participate in all these things that they might really be embarrassed about in 5 or 10 years. So I really encourage parents to have that conversation, but I think schools should make that a mandatory part of the curriculum because digital literacy is today's literacy and there's so many pieces to it that really demand the time in school. The other advantage of having it in the classroom is you want kids to have these conversations together because that's how they create the social norms that they'll take into their digital world. That doesn't happen alone with your child at home, but it happens with a group. And also when that group learns these lessons together, they watch out for each other online and they might encourage each other to say, look, that's really dumb, or what's the point? Or do you want to be an influencer? I don't know. It's such a bigger question of just how do you address one thing at home with your child?
Absolutely. I think context matters
Yeah.
um, when you're having these conversations because we all know TikTok will have its day.
Yeah. And
I
there'll be
mean,
something
again, they're
else
doing
tomorrow.
great. Yeah, they're doing great, right? But we know that the next one is coming
Yeah.
along. It's
Right.
already being formed somewhere.
Yeah.
We just
And like
don't
you said
know its
earlier,
name.
like kids are kids. They've been the same forever. And so whatever they're doing on TikTok today, they did 20 years ago on the street corner, and they're going to do in 10 years on a different social media platform. So that is not going to change. So we have to remember that when we freak out or worry about these individual apps and just work on kids, and hope that they have
Absolutely.
the information upstairs to be smart wherever they are.
So I just want to pause for a minute and encourage our viewers, if you're on Zoom, please submit your questions for Diana through the Q&A function. If you're watching us on Facebook, please go ahead and submit them in the comments section, and our team will make sure that we are able to get to your questions. Um, I think, Diana, on this issue of teaching our kids how to use these apps in safe ways, there's also things that the app can do. So, we went through all these features that TikTok has put into place. They've done a really good job. I think we agree. Is there something more that they could be doing that they're not currently doing today to make
Well,
sure it's a safe and healthy place for
yeah,
kids?
I would argue that we have to be doing more as a society. And there's so many things that we can do. Like that family pairing thing is just awesome. But how many families really sit down with their kid and go through it and talk about it and maybe have an agreement in place before the child starts using it? So that's one part. I would argue that a lot of parents don't have time to do that. And it's terrible because it takes time and it demands time. The other part too is something that I do with students in the classroom. I have them read the privacy policy of TikTok and they actually enjoy it. It's very deep. There's a lot of parts to it, but they're little investigators and they find things in there that they don't like or they like or whatever. And I think that's really important too. All these apps that we use, we should go into it with full knowledge, even if you're a child. And again, that takes time, but I always tell parents, just add up the amount of time your child's going to spend on that app, hundreds of hours, right? Why not spend a few hours up front really educating yourself and going in fully prepared? So these apps are doing, they're doing okay, giving us tools. We're not doing so great actually making use of them.
That's a good point. And I think also the younger you start,
Yeah.
the younger you start, the easier. You're in control, you're in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
I have to share this I don't know if this is a fair analogy, but I was reading some history on the automobile in Detroit between 1900 and 1930. What a disaster, an absolute disaster. People did not even know how to make left-hand turns. The numbers of deaths, it was in the 40 to 60% of deaths were children playing in the street because there were no stop signs, no lines in the middle of the road. There were no rules whatsoever. So I'm not suggesting it's going to take 30 years before we kind of figure out how to make the internet a safe place for anyone who's engaging with it. Maybe it will take 30 years. I don't know. But there's some precedent to us as a society struggling with a new technology, and unfortunately, a lot of harm done along the way until we figured out. I think it was maybe 15 years later, 15 years into that Detroit decided, well, we should designate some part of our police force to be traffic cops. This was before we had traffic lights, right? And but it just took a while. Do you think it's going to take us that long, or do you think we'll get there at some
I
point?
think we're getting there because honestly, I see today's kids sort of being smarter online than maybe my generation. Because we were the first ones. We made a lot of mistakes. We're still making a lot of mistakes. And I just think with a little bit of education, kids are going to be remarkable online. And I'm talking about things like recognizing misinformation. The other thing, I see kids wanting to report bad behavior. And that's something I really encourage, being an upstander. I have a great example of a class that I taught, and they came in one day and they're like, oh, there was this really offensive video on TikTok, against the LGBTQ community, and we all reported it. And I thought, good for you. That's so cool that they actually took the time and spoke up about something they didn't like. So there's just so many ways to just nudge kids a little bit to make the next generation better. And I don't think we're that far away, but we have to do the work. It's not going to happen without a little work on our end.
Yeah, I agree. And for all of our audience out there, if you are parents of kids who are pushing you to use TikTok and you're not ready yet, or you already have children who are pretty heavy TikTok users, it's never too late to, sit down and have these conversations. You said something earlier, Diana, about the fact that it isn't just for entertainment. It is a window to the world.
Yeah.
That means they're getting
Right.
information on current events,
Yes.
how they are viewing other people who are different from them. It's become a lens for them. And so that is also why it's not just about TikTok challenges and dances. It's a window to the world. And
Exactly.
if you don't realize that lens might be very different from the one that you've been sharing with them, that's going to make for some tough conversations down the road. So the earlier you can have these conversations, what did you see today on TikTok? Or when your child says, did you know that blah, 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 you ask them, where did you hear that?
Right.
Because that always leads to, I saw it on TikTok, or I saw it on Instagram. For sure. Yeah. I'd like to turn to some questions we are getting from the audience here. We have one on Facebook that came through saying, as adults on TikTok, do you have any recommendations on how we can lead younger generations by example to promote a healthy digital culture?
I think that's a great question. And I think leading by example is exactly what we should do. And that's why I love seeing these family friendly challenges with all generations doing them together that are lovely and cute and fun and wholesome. So if you're lucky enough to have a kid who's willing to do that with you, absolutely jump in and do it. If you have the guts. I don't, but because it's just so great, and it's modeling a healthy, positive use of technology, and kids need to see that.
And I would suggest too, show your kids what good looks like, what nice, what positive looks like. So every once in a while you find those videos. It just doesn't, not just on TikTok, by the way, it could be anywhere. If you find examples of this, the goodness of humanity, and you found that on the internet, show your kids that, or tag those people and lift them up, so that help them be viral. Those are the things that should be viral.
Yeah,
Right.
though that's when you use your like as a vote, to,
That's
as you
right.
say, lift things up and to encourage that positivity and ignore the negativity.
Absolutely. And I think commenting on other people's things with positive comments. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, we have another question here. I've seen the coin purchasing in Reddit, and it's used for awarding posts and content. I see this going along the lines of gamification of apps. We see all over, making them more addicting. Is this a concern on TikTok, I guess, in particular? Any thoughts about that?
You know, okay, so the whole thing about addiction. So technically, there's no such thing as tech addiction, as you know. Some kids just use it more than others. And this is something parents are really concerned right now because kids are using digital tools more than ever during the pandemic. So a couple things, I mean, address that with your kids. And this is a really good reason to have a tech agreement no matter what they're doing. It's not really the app, it's just they're online a lot. You might need to set parameters so that they know that they're only supposed to be on this long. Remember, the judgment center in the brain doesn't work till about 25 years of age. So a kid doesn't know that it's, hey, I should turn this off, So you need to help them a little bit in that manner. And then the other thing I do with kids in the classroom is I teach them about the addictive features built into technology. And when they learn about that, they're kind of bummed and they become more thoughtful, like, hey, the ding, I don't want to respond to a ding. For them to understand all those mechanisms is very powerful for them to start making their own decisions about when to walk away from the apps and tools they use.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Diana, that if raising awareness, because when you tell a kid that there's nothing more they want than to be in control, right? Especially in the adolescent years, because they're learning to become independent, and yet there's so much still out of their control. Their parents are telling them what to do, school is telling them what to do, and so on. And you're right. When you send the message, someone's trying to manipulate you with this
Yeah.
gamification thing, right? They're trying to, goad
Yeah.
you into spending more money. That might get them to stop and say, hold up, I am not going to let you manipulate me into
Exactly.
spending another dime.
It
That's a really
actually
good
does
point.
work. It actually is very powerful because, especially with middle school students, because that's when they really want to assert their independence. They hate to be told what to do. And when they discover it's not mom telling me what to do, it's my phone, it really shifts the whole conversation. And I've seen it work so well with kids that age. So education
Yeah,
is power.
it is. And I think with the younger kids, just blocking the in-app purchasing probably is the easiest thing you could
Yeah.
do, so they don't
Yeah.
continue to spend money that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those young kids need training wheels, when they're below middle school,
Yeah.
for sure. They need help.
Absolutely. We got another question here. From what you've heard parents telling you, what would you say are the biggest concerns with children using digital devices? I think you mentioned one earlier already.
Yeah, screen time. And I think on TikTok, I mean, sadly, sometimes really horrible stuff does seep through. I wrote an article on Psychology Today about this, but there was actually a suicide that appeared on TikTok back in September. And my own students, I had a class the next day, and I would say about half of my students had seen it. So really horrible stuff like that can pop through. That's why I love seeing that restricted mode is such an important advancement. So there's
Yeah.
concerns, and also, when TikTok, especially when it started, there's a lot of sex. I mean, sexy dance moves and scantily clothed women. And I don't think those are really the role models we want our young kids to see. So that's what I always talk to parents about.
Yeah. So screen time in general, and then
Content.
inappropriate content.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say third is probably inappropriate contact
Yeah.
or unwanted contact anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here's a great question. Does TikTok rate the videos? Oh gosh. This is the problem with user generated content. How
Yeah.
do you rate that? I
I
mean,
think the
how
sheer
many are being uploaded every second?
that's the thing. And this is an interesting conversation, honestly, because it's like, that's what people like about these apps is immediate gratification. You make a video, it's up, bam. And like, do we need that time for reflection or that time to give their moderators a chance to catch up and actually look at stuff? So that's a bigger question about social media in general. I think
Yeah.
the sheer volume would make it impossible to rate. And also it goes against the whole idea that anybody is a creator. We all can make stuff, it's a great equalizer. So a lot of stuff at
Yes,
play here.
it is. And I think you bring up an interesting point about the fact that there's not enough friction in the system, because it is so easy to believe, share, post, react, all of those things. Um, sometimes these social networks are, the uh, it's like our living id. Just
Yeah.
whatever we think, whatever we're feeling, just
Put it out
let it
there.
go, let it
Yeah, and
fly.
that's probably the conversation that parents should have with their kids is think before you post. Like be reflective.
Yeah.
And again, I go back to that very elemental lesson about your digital reputation. Everything you put out there is there forever and people are going to judge you by it. So be really thoughtful about
Yes.
pushing that button.
Yeah, I think it takes practice, practice, practice,
Yeah.
practice. And on to this, to close out the question of does TikTok rate the videos? The answer is they don't. I mean, they're just monitoring, right? They're monitoring if they
As best they
violate. Yeah, exactly. And I do think that enabling the users through
Yeah.
things like reporting, engaging the community to be part of, hey, that's not okay. It's
Yeah.
not okay to be posting that. I think that is a best practice that almost all of the apps have in place and probably largely very helpful too, for the most part. So unfortunately, without any video ratings, you can't set up a filter that will just say, hey, this one's for age, whatever. Because that you would have to ask the creator to decide what age it's for.
Right.
And I think unless you train people, that would be very hard to do, I think. It would slow things down too, as you said. We have another question here. Dear Diana, what is your view or thoughts on moderation and who should be responsible? Should we even be able to upload videos directly? If the message is important, it can wait, can't it? Examples of videos on the Holocaust denial were viewed millions of times. So what's your thought on moderation? I feel badly for the people who are in that job, by the way.
So hard. I know. I always tell students, help the moderators. That's why we as users of the internet have to be more proactive and, flagging things, reporting things, not watching things, not sharing things. It's really some self-responsibility is very important. And moderation's imperfect, whether it's done by a computer, an algorithm, or by a real person. It's never going to be perfect because of the sheer volume. And I would love to have a little time to wait. Like, I think there should be a pause button on everything. I don't think that we need to see a video the second we make it. That's in my perfect world, that's how it would be.
I think that was a move. There's a movement called slow social, like slow eating, for example. But yeah, we could probably, that's a way that we could set an example for our own kids too, is don't respond, just wait for a minute. Will the world really end?
I used to
if you
tell
wait?
I tell my kids, like with email, if I had an email that I had to send to somebody that was important, I'd sleep on it and send it the next day. And that was always the advice I'd give kids is like, hey, if it's a video that's going to really be seen by a lot, maybe think about it. And then if you still feel good about it, then post it the next day.
Absolutely, yes. And again, I encourage anyone, if you have questions, to put them in the Q&A or in the comments section of Facebook. While I have you, I think I'd love to share with the audience some of the resources that you have in general, but also specifically on TikTok. And because I think that these are some great ones. So let's talk about this one here.
Okay, well, this is on our CyberWise website, and we have these things called learning hubs. We have a hub on literally any digital topic you can think of. This is our TikTok learning hub, where we just have a collection of different resources that should be helpful to parents.
Okay, and that's at cyberwise.org/TikTok. Is that right?
Correct.
cyberwise.org/TikTok. Okay. And then I know you wrote a book. It was a little while ago now. It's not
Yeah,
not too long ago, but yes.
Yeah, I wrote it. It came out in 2019, so not too long ago, and it really covers like the whole spectrum of digital literacy. And what I think is most useful to parents is that at the end of every chapter, I offer like 3 or 4 activities that you can do with your child at home to build digital literacy skills. And there's also a free discussion guide on my website there at that URL. And I really love it when groups like of parents or teachers read chapters together and then discuss the chapters using the guide, because that's the way that they can really support each other, because our kids are not growing up alone, they're growing up with their peers. And when their parents are on the same page, the kids are on the same page, and it makes a huge difference.
Well, this is fantastic. And I encourage everybody to consider getting a copy of the book at www.dianagraber.com, which you can see there on your screen. I think I should try one of these chapters with one of my kids pretty soon here. I think I need to do that. You know, to our audience, I also want to encourage you to take a look at resources from ourselves, Trend Micro, at internetsafety.trendmicro.com, where you'll find all the recordings of our past webinars, tip sheets in 8 or 9 languages on a range of issues, probably some very similar to Diana's book. So Diana, we will place your resources on our website as well, so parents can find it there too. So that's cyberwise.org and dianagraber.com. I want to encourage everybody who's listening to, when you leave today, please, please, please consider not only joining us again in 2 weeks, but completing our survey, and we'll be giving a couple prizes to those of you willing to give your email addresses. 1 of 5 copies of Trend Micro Maximum Security, which it's good for 1 year and will protect up to 5 devices in your home. So if you're willing to leave your email address with the feedback, you will be eligible for that. You are not obligated to include your email address. And in 2 weeks' time, we're actually going to have Dr. Samir Hinduja and Dr. Justin Patchen from the Cyberbullying Research Center. Diana, I think you're familiar with their work as well.
A great
yes.
conversation. You'll have to have a few hours for them.
Yes, absolutely. But we're going to be talking about encouraging kindness and supporting resilience in our kids, especially through this really, really challenging period. So with that, I want to thank you, Diana, for joining us today. This was great fun. I was so happy to be reunited with you after so long.
It's great to see you.
You as well. And if I could travel, I would go to LA in July for the National Association for Media Literacy and Education Conference.
I know.
But it will just have to be virtual this time.
Yeah, it's such an important one too. Like it's
very important
for media literacy right now.
Very, very important. In fact, I just want to give a quick shout out to our team, who's actually been trying to do our part in fighting misinformation. If you're not familiar, you can check it out, Diana, at check.trendmicro.com. It's a free tool that allows you to put in any link. If you're wondering if it's safe or if it's even true, just send it and we send you back. It's a really cool tool. We partnered with International Fact Checking Network. We have some of our own great technology around what's cybercrime and what's not. So just send the link, send the screenshot, and we'll tell you if it's safe or not. So yeah, give it a try. And so I wanted to give the team a plug for that too. And again, thank you to Julia Barnes and to Krista Lambert for supporting us today as our ASL interpreters as well. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Lynette. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.